Welcome to Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends. Today we are talking about weed.
Okay, so welcome to Actified Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends. And today with me I have Sarah, and you can follow her at Punk Sandwich on Twitter. So Sarah, welcome to Chat.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. So I think we wanted to address kind of the topic of pot and weed and all that good stuff, because with, I guess, Seattle is now proposing to not only that they've had it legalized there for a bit, but not only that, but they're also looking to, basically wipe the record clean of people that have had marijuana convictions in the past, and I guess set them out of prison. And I think, and Janet, you can correct me, but they're trying to do the same thing in Massachusetts now, or they're proposing to do the same thing.
They're looking to pardon the people that are in prison.
Right.
The good thing about that is we're the first on the East Coast that went legal, and a lot of the states are actually looking towards Massachusetts for how they're handling it.
Yeah, so this is like a big step in the United States, I think. I think it's a great step to take in the US. And so now, Sarah, you have a book on weed and also just terminology and things like that. So why don't you just tell us exactly why you decided to write that in the first place?
I decided to write it. Well, actually, Michael Graham just asked me to write a book about weed. And I was like, okay, well, I'd love to do that. He's been like, what are you looking for? And he's like, well, I want you to write it for people that are interested in trying it, but have absolutely no idea what they're doing. He's like, imagine you're writing a book for someone like me. And I just put together that little pamphlet, and it was fun to write. I look forward to doing more of them for him. He's asked me to do 2 more, which will be more in depth, like more like book size. And I'll be getting into the nitty gritty and of growing, concentrates, pretty much anything that you can think of having to do with pot will be in there. It'll be fun doing research stuff.
So can we kind of go back a little bit and kind of maybe understand why pot has been so heavily criminalized in the US? Can you maybe give us a brief history on that?
Well, it started with racism, basically. Smoking was becoming really popular, especially it was brought to America by Mexican immigrants, and it was also really popular with like people like black jazz musicians and Harlem and stuff. And so the U.S. government decided to start demonizing it, and basically they're like, oh well, look at these scary immigrants. They're getting your women and people hooked on this scary plant. That's where the whole reefer madness thing came from. Like, it's addictive. It's the devil's lettuce, and it will like make women all like insatiably lustful, and oh no, what a terrible thing. But yeah, basically then they were able to get it criminalized first with the Marijuana Tax Act, and then they were finally able to just full on criminalize it in 1937. So and it's been legal ever since. And then with the Controlled Substances Act of 1970, that's what put it on the schedule, created the scheduling system, and that's what put it on Schedule 1. And there have been multiple efforts to try to move it down to Schedule 2, but the DEA has not been very cooperative about that.
Can you maybe why do you think the DEA hasn't been very willing to move it down to a Schedule 2 classification of drug?
Well, the reasons that they give is they don't think that there's enough research on it. But the thing about things on Schedule 1 is they're very, very difficult to research. Like, there are so many restrictions put on it. There's only one facility in America that is even allowed to grow pot for the purposes of research. And it's also like the lowest quality, like worst ditch weed that you can possibly imagine. So as you can imagine, they're not really getting accurate results from studies that they're doing, which I'm sure they're doing on purpose to show that it's perhaps more harmful than good. Another reason is the DEA and the FDA are pretty well connected, and as we know, the FDA is pretty well connected to the drug companies, which do not want cannabis legalized at all because it would basically ruin them, which we're starting to see in states that are legal. Is like opioid use is going way down. Opioid overdoses are going way down because people are using cannabis to get off of it, like especially like in terms of pain management. And they don't like that.
Right. And so that cuts into, I guess, Big Pharma's bottom line, because they would like to continue to assure that people are addicted to opioids instead. So speaking of pain management, Janet, I know that you utilize pot for your particular circumstance regarding pain management. Can you maybe discuss that with our viewers a little bit?
Yeah, so I have a progressive rare disease. I've said that a lot. I was actually on opioids. They had me on opioids for 8 years. The last I was on was morphine. I wasn't willing to move up from that. I started having seizures. Personally, I had a little issue with pot only because my first husband was a pot user and he did some not so great things in order to get money and stuff like that. So he was, I know you don't get addicted to pot, but he was addicted in the way that he needed it and stuff like that. So it was a friend of mine. Through the summers, I always had trouble eating. I couldn't hold food down. And she finally said to me, look, you need to do this. And I had, it's not that I use pot. I use pot plenty, but I mean, I just wasn't using it on any regular basis since I was younger. And I tried it and I actually could eat and hold food down, and I was amazed. So that was a couple of years before I really used it all the time. So I would use it, periodically here and there. My doctor knew. He was an advocate. My pain management doctor was fine with pot. But I started getting seizures daily. Didn't know what they were from. It turned out I have hemiplegic migraines, and I would get silent seizures. And so I started cutting back on the morphine and using the pot a little bit. And then I finally just said, you know what, I just got to go full on. And I will tell you that was right around the time, it was in 2015. There was a time that I thought I was going to be in a wheelchair by this age. I was planning on it. We were already shopping for wheelchairs. I have a walker like people use. I have all that equipment, canes, everything. Since I started the marijuana, the one thing that I complain about, I don't have enough energy. That's about it. I have a better appetite. My pain level, oh my God, my pain level is totally leveled down. I still get spikes in pain just because of my disease, but my pain level it was at I'm not even kidding you, it was a 6 or 7 at a normal day, back before I started marijuana. And
is that out of 10?
Out of 10, yeah. Well, they do. I know I'm chronically ill, so I talk.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who is listening or viewing would kind of understand the level. Now, you said we were speaking earlier about kind of how you go, or that you can't do the smoking one because you're asthmatic, but you can do edibles. And so I was just curious from, I guess, my own interest, I'm sure other people would be interested, especially those that don't use it for pain management or are looking to use it for pain management, if the efficacy level is different for edibles or for the inhalation version.
My whole thing, like when I started, it was I had no guide. I even with the dispensaries, you could go up in Massachusetts at that point. When I first started, they only had the dispensaries for about a year at that point. And when I first went into the dispensary, I asked them, and they had no clue. They didn't know. They didn't know what to do for pain. I was asking them all sorts of questions. I ended up getting into a caregiver situation where they actually come to my house and bring it to me, which was a much better situation because you can talk to the people. They had other patients that they were talking to. And so, we all kind of, we kind of made this little, we'd share our stories on what was working, which ones were helping us and stuff like that. A lot of the people that were caregivers were actually also patients that were using it. So that kind of worked out. What I started with and what, what I went through the RSO, the Rick Simpson oil, and how they treat cancer. My disease is I grow lipomas all through my body. So I have like, things with the growth, and so it kind of goes with the tumors and stuff like that. So in the thinking, when we were thinking about it, all right, so I'll go on the same thing that someone with cancer. So my whole purpose was, in what they do for cancer is in 90 days, you need to get in, I think it's, I wish I remember that. I think it's 60,000 milligrams in 90 days. It ended up being, I was supposed to do at least 60 to 100 a day of milligrams of THC. And that's kind of what I stayed on. And actually that's kind of where I was doing it throughout the day. And I would start it in the morning and do it through the day. But now all I do now is I do it at night, and it helps me sleep. That was another thing. I had insomnia like constantly. I'd sleep like maybe 3 to 4 hours. At least now I'm getting, 6 to 7 hours normally. But it, yeah, so I normally just do it at night, and it keeps my pain levels down. I can do a little bit more activity. I can move my muscles a lot better, because I had muscle fatigue really bad. But I have a doctor who, my primary care, hates marijuana, hates it. And
so I think I was kind of asking to see if you knew, maybe you answered in there, if the inhalation version, smoking version versus if there was a difference that you could tell between the two versus edibles versus smoking, or if it was more effective to do the edibles. I know that for you, your particular circumstance, you'd probably lean to edibles anyways, just because of your asthma. But if you knew, like, I'm sure you have smoked it before, and maybe that's how you started the pain management therapy with THC. But if you could remember if it was, I don't know, better for your particular pain levels to do the edibles over the smoking.
The smoking will have an effect sooner. The edibles, some people don't like the edibles because they don't hit them quite the same. They can either hit you way too strong or not hit you at all. It depends on the strains and where you're getting the edibles. I actually cook my own, and I know exactly what's going into it, and it's all about the strains. It's all about there's just so much into it, and there's so many different things that it can help. That I mean, just in the basic, you have indica and sativa, and the sativa can, is great for the day because it actually gives you energy. It's something a lot of like artists and stuff will use too, because it gives you focus and energy, and that's the terpenes that are in the sativa do that. Where for the pain management, sometimes the indica is a little better. You also want a lot of CBD for pain. So whether you add extra CBD in with it, or you just get one that has a higher CBD and a lower THC, that actually helps a lot too with pain management. So it really just depends on, you know, what you're suffering from. Or like anxiety, you want indicas if you have anxiety. You don't want the sativa because it causes anxiety. So I mean, it's just stuff like that.
Right. So Sarah, back kind of back to you. Where if we were, I guess there's some states that are at least looking to legalize fully, or they've done a veto override of their governor. I think Maine has done this. So they're looking at getting dispensaries in 2019, maybe the earliest time that they will have them available. So we're going to assume that there will probably be some people that are brand new to that scene and want to try it and want to at least look at it. Where would be a good resource for them to go, other than, of course, your little, I guess, pamphlet is what you called it. Maybe a good place to start even. What would you recommend them do?
Well, crap. There's a lot of really good resources. I would probably say to plug something else that I do, check out grasscity.com, the magazine that I write for. It's very informative regarding that type of thing. Let's see if it really just depends what your interests are. Like if you're interested in growing, or you want to know like more about like how to start a business, or you just want to know like the ins and outs of weed in general, it just there's a lot of places you could go. I'll have to get back to you on that. Let's see. I don't know, like Leafly is a good one. If you like growing, iheartgrowingmarijuana.com is a good one. Even if you're not in Colorado, the Colorado Pot Guide has been a great source of information for me, definitely. And, you know, like pot's the same everywhere. So it's, that's a pretty good one too. I don't know, if you're looking for dispensaries in your area, then Weed Maps is a good place to go. Like really just depends on what you're looking for.
Okay. And also, I just had a question in my head and I just lost it. Well,
It happens.
I'm trying to think. Well, damn. Oh, now earlier you mentioned about the lack of research done in the United States regarding THC and efficacy and things like that. Is there a resource that people could go if they were interested in looking at the research that has been done outside of the United States specifically, just to see if it's beneficial or anything? Or do you know of anything?
Honestly, like when I'm looking for research, I really just like Google and kind of skim through everything. I don't really have a go-to that I rely on. It really just depends on what I'm looking for. Like if I'm looking for like, hey, like what studies have been done on cannabis and anxiety, then I just Google that and I look for like what's been done there. As far as saying like there hasn't been enough research, that's just the argument that they use. There actually has been like tons of research done that shows that cannabis is pretty much harmless. I mean, you can have bad reactions to it. People can be allergic to it, that type of thing. But there are plenty of there's plenty of research that's been done to show the medical efficacy, like the medical value of cannabis. They just that's just the bullshit argument that they use to say that it should stay illegal. Like, oh, there needs to be more research. There needs to be more research. Well, there can always be more research, but what we have, I'd say, is plenty sufficient to argue for full legalization across the country.
Right. And I think that the majority of research has been done outside of the United States, right? I mean, I just saw an article just a second ago that was done in Canada about the efficacy of pain management and THC, and it was pretty solid research.
Yeah, a lot of good research does come out of Canada, especially since they're going to be legalizing in July. And let's see, Israel also conducts a lot of research on cannabis. That's where a lot of research, like in the 60s, started. That's where they discovered CBD and THC and terpenes and pretty much like the things that we have known about the plant for a long time basically came out of Israel.
Also, Simpson is from Canada, so they
that's right.
did a lot of stuff there. So,
I don't know. Is there anything else we need to address other than like the writing stuff and anything?
I don't know. I think that what Seattle and Massachusetts and actually like now San Francisco wants to do the same thing are doing are good things. Like it's a good step towards undoing some of the damage of the drug war. Obviously, like it needs to go further. Like expunging arrest records would be good because those still show up. And but another thing that Massachusetts is doing that's really cool is they're allowing people with past felony convictions for pot to apply for business licenses, which is something that's never been done in any of the other legal states. So like it's always been like kind of a cruel, sick joke to me that people who were like convicted of like selling a bag like 10 years ago can't suddenly enjoy and like reaping the benefits of legal pot. Like it's just ridiculous. And also like on a personal note, I feel like someone who used to sell weed would probably be better at operating a dispensary than some like random asshole capitalist. You know, they understand the plant a little more, they know what people want, and yeah, that's basically my thought on that. But it's a good start, and I hope we start to see more states and cities do that, which I think we will, especially as I think New Jersey was talking about doing the same thing because they're planning on legalizing sometime soon. Yeah, hopefully we start
looking towards Mass and how after July when Massachusetts is they're going to be doing the lounges and stuff like that for it. I think Massachusetts has a good plan. I was complaining a lot about it because it's been so long. I mean, it's been legal here for a year and a half, and they haven't done anything. We just had the dispensaries and we had nowhere to buy it. You could only gift it to people so far. So as of July, I'm actually kind of, I'll give it to them. They did right. Their plan seems pretty solid, and I'm glad that I'm kind of glad they waited on it, though they should have worked on it a little bit sooner, I think. But
oh, absolutely. Another thing they're doing that I like is they're starting to pay attention to how energy intensive it is to grow pot. So they're working on like getting people to use more energy efficient lights and like find more efficient ways to use like water and stuff because growing weed requires a lot of energy and a lot of water, and it's not very environmentally friendly at all, which is unfortunate. So we need to work on that.
Well, it's more environmentally friendly if you can grow it outdoors. But yes. Now, of course, the southern states aren't really allowing it yet, and that would be like the perfect place. But I mean, California probably can start growing some, but then you get into we talked about like Amanda and I were talking about like the security issues on that. You'd have to pay for people to watch the stuff. So I mean, it's either or. But I mean, yeah, Massachusetts is looking at the environmental issues with it and trying to make it so that that there's a little bit less of a carbon footprint from it. So that is good.
All right, so we just finished speaking with Sarah, and she does have a I guess what she calls the pamphlet available, The Complete Noob's Guide to Smoking Weed, and that is available through Actify Press. So Sarah, again, thank you so much for speaking to us about this. I really do appreciate you talking to our viewers.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I can't wait to come back if you guys will have me back. This was fun.
Sure. All the time.
You just listened to another episode of Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Also, head on over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/ActifyChat and help us bring more content to you by supporting us. Thank you, and keep fighting the good fight, my friends.